Hi there, this is Justin Krane, Certified Financial Planner Professional and founder of Krane Financial Solutions. Welcome to Money You Got This. So how can you really live? How? By uniting your business money, your personal money with your life and your business. Word up.
Krane Financial is an SEC-registered investment advisor. However, such registration does not imply a certain level of skill or training, and no inference to the contrary should be made. A copy of our current written disclosure statement discussing our advisory services and fees is available upon request. Information contained herein is for informational and illustrative purposes only, and general in nature. It should not be considered specific financial planning or investment advice, or a recommendation to buy or sell any type of securities or other investment products.
What is up, everybody? This is Justin Krane from Money You Got This. This show is brought to you by Krane Financial Solutions. We offer financial planning and investment management services to business owners and help them with both their business and personal money. So here's the deal. It's time to merge your money with your life. That's what this show is all about. Money You Got This. So who do I have on today? I have someone pretty cool. I don't go way back with her, but I feel like I do because she knows someone who I'm really close with. We have on today Kristine Berry. Kristine, how you doing?
Good. I'm doing very well. Thank you.
Awesome. I'm psyched you're listening to the show. I want to give you this free report. 3 things multimillionaires do to grow their wealth. Just go to coolmoneyshow.com to grab it. That's coolmoneyshow.com to grab it. Thanks. I have this whole bio and I'm looking at all of this stuff that you've done. And I'm like, if I did a quarter of this, I think it would be a big win for me.
Yeah. So you don't have to read it. They can just go check out my website at some point in time if they're interested. I'm a dental geek. I've been in dentistry for over 30 years. So starting off as a clinician, a consultant, lecturer, writer. So kind of a, Renaissance woman at this point in time in my life. I'm going to call myself that. How's that?
I love it. So, I mean, you've done speaking, consulting, you've worked with Fortune 500 companies, you have a bunch of accreditations. You've been called the career whisperer. Well, let me just start off with that. What is that? Don't tell anyone. What's up with that?
Well, that comes into when you're working with dental practices and the leadership, and they may have a little bit of an aggressive personality or they don't get along with others. So I hopefully help them be a little bit more self-aware and kind of mitigate or mediate those type of interpersonal communications so the team does kind of do what they want them to do without feeling like they have to beat them with a stick.
How do you do that? So it's like you get a dentist and a hygienist or a front office manager and like the 3 of them hate one another, but you come in there and you make everyone like, what are they? We all sing in like Kumbaya in a circle and it's all good, or like what happens?
No, that could happen, but it comes down just in respect, right? So you don't necessarily have to like the person or go out drinking with the person that you're working with, but you do have to have a level of respect and you have to level of civility. And so sometimes, and what we'll find in the research is that, and it kind of tubs into the whole money situation too, as far as personalities. A lot of doctors, surgeons, someone who is very technical and very precise and just really focused on what they're doing and they're caring for patients at this high level, that sometimes their people skills haven't been developed as much. And as you know, you need people around you if you're in a small group to help you succeed. So it's just kind of helping them have a little bit more interpersonal communication.
So how do you tell a dentist, let's just say it's a dentist, right? That they're either an idiot.
You don't have to pick on dentists. It's not always dentists.
Yeah, but how do you tell people, the business owner, right, that maybe their way isn't right, or maybe they need to do things differently without making them feel inadequate or bad about who they are and what they do?
Yeah. So if I'm going to generalize, I don't think we have to worry about a lot of doctors having that low of a self-esteem. So not even going to have that story, but the story that they do, a lot of them comes from their background, it comes from their upbringing, it comes from their education, and a lot of the behaviors that they exhibit, they don't even think that they're that bad. It's like, well, my dad did that to me, so why can't I say that to someone else? Or this is how I got to be successful. People beat me or didn't coddle to me, so why are they? Do I have to be any different with my staff? Or they're just lazy, right? So they ideally don't even realize that what they're saying is affecting people that way. So it's just a matter of speaking with the team, and then kind of, like I said, these people are intelligent people. It doesn't take more than a couple of coaching sessions to have them realize the effects and the impact of their behavior, intentional or not, but it's still there. So if they're a key provider or they want to stay within an organization, but they're ruffling a lot of feathers, then that's how we can have some type of coaching conversations. And like I said, it's not years on the couch, and just telling me their whole story. It's just a few behavioral shifts. And with, 3 or 4, 6 sessions, they're good to go. A couple of check-ins, and, they know what tools that they can utilize. So if they choose to, if they want to.
Tell me if you can relate to this, because I bet this happens to you, because it happens to me all. In fact, just yesterday, I was in Vegas speaking to like 100 dance studio owners about
take this off.
money.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
okay. I saw that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I come off stage, and the husband's like, my wife has all of this cash in her business, and she needs to pull it out and do something else with it because it's just sitting there. And I'm like, yeah, I totally agree. So he's like, can we hire you, and will you just tell her that? So it's kind of like, sometimes people need to hear something from someone else. They can't hear it from the source because it's a spouse issue, or it's a boss hygienist issue, right? Dentist hygienist.
Yeah.
Where it's kind of like, do you feel like you get brought in to kind of diffuse a situation and say it in a way, or just in a delivery that's already what they've already been hearing, but you're just the one saying it again and then helping them get to that next level?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, a lot of times, and there was a famous quote, if I could remember it, I will, but I can't. But basically it says that we're our own doctors, or we know what we need to do, but we just kind of need that coach to either show us or kind of nudge us in order to do it. And the whole husband and wife dynamic, that's wonderful if they both own the practice. So if they're both doctors owners, or if one is the doctor, one is the office manager. So I can definitely relate to that situation as far as she's the business owner and he sees that money and kind of wants to tell her what to do, but that's not going to bode well for him. I don't think so.
I know. So, all right. So let me ask you a few more questions.
Sure.
Why are you doing this? Like, why are you not doing something else? What is it about this consulting business that you have that lights you up? Like, why are you still doing this after 30 years, you said?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I'm still doing this because I started off as a dental hygienist, and I worked with amazing people. I worked with an amazing doctor. I worked with his wife. I'm not saying that we always got along, but we all grew together, and it was amazing experience. And they're still, I mean, they're one of my best friends now, back from, when I started working with them. That's what dentistry should be. It should be fun. Everyone should get along. You should be providing the best care. People should be hitting their numbers. The doctors should be able to, or I should say the team should be able to cash their paychecks, right? There should be that type of systems and synergy that the business is running at full throttle, and people go home tired, but not frustrated, not wanting to, strangle someone that they work with. So I think what my mojo, what keeps me going, is that I've been to the mountaintop from a clinician standpoint, and I know what these offices could become. And so if you want me to kind of open the door, if you have a vision that you want something else, hey, I want to lift you up and bring you there in any way I can. And I'm not going to pretend I can do it myself. That's why I love, collaborations and podcasts, because I know what my skill set is, and where my skill set ends, I like to have the collaboration say, hey, maybe you need to touch base with this person and they can help you excel in this area. And I'm not, at this point in time in my life, I know when to say no, and I know when to say, yeah, I can probably help you for a little bit.
So how many siblings?
I just love it. I love dentistry.
How many siblings do you have?
I have 2. I'm the youngest. I'm the little baby. I'm the spoiled little baby.
Were you the one that kept
Yeah.
the family all together and just made everyone happy and cool?
Probably my mom. My mom is definitely a connector. I tried to be the entertainer. I always wanted to kind of, I wanted the attention, so I wanted, so I wanted to be that type of person. Yeah. And I always wanted in my own mind, I was always in competition with my brother and sister because they could always do things years before I could. And so I guess I tried to always be a scrapper.
I love it. I love it. Let's
Fun.
move into, actually, I want to talk a little bit about happiness. I'm pretty sure I watched you speak on this, and I'm just like, I read a really good book about like happiness being the end all currency of life. And I'm just curious, because I think I read something or saw you speak on this is about what I want to know is, why do you think people are why do you think people are not happy? And then why do you think dentists are not happy?
In general, if you look at some of the research, I started diving into positive psychology, that aspect, probably about 10 years ago. So if, Barbara Fredrickson and that type of information talks about a happiness set point, that we're born with a certain set point in the level of, the glass half empty, the glass half full. And then there's the circumstances and lifestyles that can change that. So when I'm looking at that type of information, we can change our circumstances, we can change our choices. So hence we can change our level of happiness if we want to.
That's the key right there.
The reason why.
That's the key.
If you choose to. If you choose to. I can say that I want to lose 10 pounds, but I can also go ahead and have my third or fourth piece of pizza. So there's a little bit of a flux in what my motives are. And as far as dentists, it's tough. First of all, look at the environment that they're working in all the time. Every time we see a patient, it's not you, doc, or it's not you, Kristine. You're really nice, but I hate being here. So when you hear that 12 times a day, 5 days a week or 4 days a week for 10, 15, 20 years, it's just like, okay, we know it's not us, but you don't like to be here. And it can just be tough. And they're working in a small environment. So it's, I give them a lot of credit. And even hygiene, when I was practicing hygiene, I haven't currently practiced in a couple of years, but again, being that close to someone's mouth, that's a pretty intimate relationship. And it's you have to be on your toes 24/7. It's not something that you can just go in and I'm going to sit back and I'm going to read the paper for a couple hours. Let me check my email and let me just put this project over here. You're on as soon as you walk in the door.
So if people,
you've gotten your teeth cleaned.
Oh yeah, for sure. I go like every 5 minutes. So if people decide that they want to be happy, in particular dentists, and then 3 days later they're a complete drip and the front office staff cannot deal with them and the hygienist, you could just feel why do we keep falling back into a place where we don't want to be, and why does this continually happen and not be more of a sustained period of happiness?
I don't know. I don't know why don't we have a cure for cancer? I know that's a tough one.
But think about this. You're going in and working with clients and you can tell that their energy is bad and you're trying to bring them back and they're doing good work with you. But then in the third or fourth meeting, when you go back in, by the way, it does not have to be the dentist. It could be the front office manager or a hygienist.
Right.
And then their energy changes again. And then it's back to how they were when you first started working with them. So how do we make it where it's more sustainable and better for the entire practice and that person?
For me, it's systems. You can start off with a great mindset as far as wanting to achieve X, Y, and Z, or A, B, and C, whatever it is. But unless you have the systems and protocols in place, or habits, if you want to, from a personal perspective, and going back to those habits and looking at those habits to continue to make you successful, then you are going to fall back to where you started from. And I'm not afraid of protocols. I'm not afraid of systems. I think structure can actually set you free. So it's just a little bit, you just have to pay attention to whatever numbers or metrics or systems that you need to stay, and then track yourself, right? And then you can look back and say, wow, this is where I was 3 months ago, but this is where I am now based on this metrics that are important to me because I identified them based on my purpose and values and mission, then they can go back and say, I've done a lot. I should be grateful. A lot of times we just don't take the time to pause and record our own life. So
I love that.
No wonder they just don't think they're achieving anything if you don't have anything to balance it from.
So moving into this do you think there's a
Yeah.
clear connection between systems and profits?
Oh, yes. 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 You can, and this can go, you can be the best clinician and I mean, the extremely best clinician, but if your office isn't run effectively, you may not be able to have enough cash flow to have your team cash their checks. And I've been in that situation. And that's why I bring it up because there's been times when I have gotten a check and it was way before Texas. It's, well, you really can't cash that on Friday. You may have to wait till Tuesday. And you're like, what? And so that's stressful, especially if you're an owner of a business and you are, responsible for feeding, 6 other families or 20 other families or 1,000 other families. That can be stressful if your systems aren't in place.
So when you go in,
it's not sexy though. I mean, no one, I want to.
Yeah, no, I know that.
But once you get it done, it's really freeing, and they're like, oh, I want to do the fun stuff. I want to buy a new gadget. I want to get this technology. I want to fly off and do here. So do I. But let's get let me tell you a story. So I had a doctor. I'm working with a doctor, and she was on vacation. She texted me in a panic saying, I just checked my bank account. I had I don't know, I'll make it maybe $10,000 in this bank account that she was using for her vacation with her family, and she was going to be gone for like 2 weeks. She had never taken the time prior to her leaving to check her bank account that she was going to be using, and or let's look back the past 3 or 6 months for her accounts receivable and where that was. So she literally, that was a heart-stopping moment for her, realizing that she just didn't have the money that she thought she had. And that's something I would love to help anyone avoid if possible.
So when you go in and work with a new client, what are the systems that you try to have them set up and then maintain?
Well, usually from a consulting conversation, it's going to start with a conversation. And I really want to identify more of their values and what their goals are. And from there, we can take a step back and say, well, if you want to achieve this, or if this is what really gets you, going, let's step back and figure out what systems are going to be, you need to have in place that can support that can kind of get you there. And then once, I'm a fan of just kind of picking a lane in a way, so we don't spread yourself too thin, because so many people get change fatigue. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to start this, and nothing happens. So based on the doctor's priority, 1 or 2 systems, let's just drill down, let's get this set up. And a system is not just, it's just a checklist, but then you have to train the team on it, and then you have to follow up on it to see whether or not it's actually working.
So
and then once that gets done, we can go here, we can go here. Well, from an easy conversation, it could be new patient process or new patient protocol. And basically it's because most doctors that I speak with want new patients. I want more new patients coming in the door. And then we can talk about your current patients going out the door, but that could be another conversation. So a new patient process, and that is anywhere from your branding, from your website, to how the patients are calling you or getting into your home, your environment. And it's picking up the phone, it's verbal skills, it's tracking where they're coming from, it's tracking how long it takes them to come into practice, it's how often, when they're in the practice, what happens then, is there case acceptance, are they trusting you, are you doing a full exam, are you doing your x-rays, and all those type of more, minute dental things.
Those are a bunch of questions, or that would be on some sort of checklist. Who's managing that checklist, and then how is it getting communicated to the dentist?
Exactly, and how and where does the team need support and training? Are they able to do what you want them to do? Are they trained enough to do what you want them to do? And are they willing to do, what
Yeah.
you want them to do. So all that goes back to kind of like the human dynamics of running a practice as well.
So what usually happens when you go in and you recommend a system? Does it fall through the cracks, or do people just run with it and they implement it and it's great? Or are there problems along the way? How does that work? I'm
Yes,
going
yes,
deep on this.
yes.
This is your core of what
Yeah.
you do. And I want the
Yeah,
people to
yeah,
listen to understand, great, we all know we need systems, but sometimes they
yeah.
don't get implemented right the first time, or they don't get implemented the way that you want them to. And there's a misunderstanding. And then the dentist feels like they're not getting an ROI on hiring you at the beginning.
Right.
But then once you go much
Right.
deeper, you're able to help them even more.
Right. So a lot of good pearls in that. So number one, implementation is huge. And in my career, I have gone into dental practices, and I will tell the story time and time again, that I go into a practice and full boat dental consulting is not inexpensive. And so when I walk into a practice in a fairly new relationship and I'm looking on the back wall and I see 3 other of my contemporaries' material, and I'm looking, okay, that's probably about 30 grand. That was probably about 22. That's probably anything about 55. They're all right there, amazing modules and systems. And I turned to the doctor and I said, why am I really here? What do you expect me to, give you in my brilliance that you don't already have here? And what you basically comes to, it's behavioral change. It's establishing the systems in place, but then following up with the team. And that's kind of where the difference for me is consulting. Yes, I can put my consulting hat on and say, okay, your accounts receivable or your new patient exam process needs a little bit tweaking and needs a little up leveling. But then the coaching has to come in where you have to follow up with them. So whether that's a weekly phone call, whether that's a daily phone call, and making sure that they're getting that traction, that habit, so it's ingrained enough so they don't fall back into their old ways again. And then you lift up their team around them. So if someone is falling off, you have your team member saying, hey, wait, we had that agreement that we were going to do A and B when new patients came in. And you know what? I noticed that you didn't do that. Help me understand what went on there. And then whether that's the doctor or the office manager, and just kind of peel that back and say, all right, you know what, tomorrow, let's start again. Let's start fresh. And that's from a coaching perspective, I can help to, move that along, which is what coaching is, just kind of hold someone's hand. I can't do it for them, and I can't want it more than my clients do. And I think that's a challenge too. If you tell me you want X, I will help do the best I can to help you get there. But if you change your mind and if you're not putting the effort in, then that's another conversation that we have to have and say, hey, what agreements do we have to renegotiate in this relationship? So it's all about communication.
That's great.
Too.
No, I love that. I think you're coming at it from many different angles in any way that could probably just get those results. So I think that's great. I want to move on into the numbers part of the conversation, which is something that I love.
Sure.
Why do you think a lot of business owners, and in particular dentists, why do you think they don't know their own numbers? Or do they? Do you find that some do, or because I've read, I think that some do, some don't, but why do you think the ones that don't really know what's going on?
Because the dental curriculum is so jam-packed with education that they need to have, to serve their clients, there's not necessarily, it's emerging and it's changing, and someone's going to send me an email, well, my dental school did this. Amazing, great. But in general, they just don't have the business acumen going through their particular curriculum. And so then once they graduate, 15, 20 years ago, everyone started their own practice. Now there's different career paths that doctors can go into, and it doesn't have to be practice ownership. That first 2 or 3 to 5 years, they may be able to then learn those type of business skills that they need if they choose then to go off on their own. So it's just not accessible to them in dental school.
So how do you
focusing on the science and the education?
How do you learn? Let's say you don't know and you're trying to learn. Do you teach this to them? Are there books that you think they should read? Is it more just jump in the pool and figure it out, or what?
Again, it's like everyone's a unique snowflake. So yeah, it could be all the above. there are certain best practices and benchmarks in dentistry that you want to make sure from your P&L perspective that you kind of fall in that realm, depending if you're a new grad or someone who's been in practice for 10 to 15 years or someone who may even be retiring. So there's trends out there that you could just spend. I mean, there's great networks and resources. You can find that out. It's not, and like I mentioned before, the systems and the protocols, they're out there, but it's really the people aspect of it. And it used to be called the soft skills that really make or break a practice and make or break a doctor's income as far as whether it's going to be profitable or not. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the tools are out there. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I find that in working with clients in the dental space, they have a basic understanding of the numbers. They might know their sales, but they might not know the profits or the ROI in a specific area. We use lots of different ratios, like staff as a percentage of sales or percentage of conversions of patients, what their rent is, how much money they're saving. Taxes is a whole that's a whole vortex that I have to deal with a lot.
Yeah, that's you can handle that exactly.
And what I find in consulting on the numbers is that everyone has a specific money personality, and I know that's something that you talk a lot about. So let's move into that. In clarity, like having the clarity of knowing the numbers, or actually the intention of wanting to know, being reactive versus being proactive. I'm curious because I know and I love to talk a lot about money stories, money scripts, money personalities, blah blah blah. Right. So let's talk about this for a little bit. What's your thoughts on the inner game of money for business owners?
Yeah, you made me think of something when you talk about what you think the main cause is. I think I want to go back before we step into the money conversation, if you don't mind, as far as the personalities, because dentistry has been or is still very much a cottage industry. And in my experience, I'll just speak for myself, there's a lot of scarcity. There's a lot of scarcity mentality. So when you're talking about why don't you think they know or have learned this, there's a certain level of not wanting to ask and other people not wanting to share. So they don't want to, because they think that if I share a little tidbit of a product, or a system or a service with a doctor at a CE meeting, and he's only across town, oh my gosh, and all the patients are going to go over there. When we know that's not a reality. There's only 50% of the adult population even go to the dentist. There's plenty of growth out there.
We call that poverty thinking.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the challenges with our industry too. When you're seeing people at meetings, there was only a certain percentage of us who would really just kind of say, hey, I'll tell you this, let's just have a normal conversation, not try to posture that much. Does that make sense? So I think that scarcity mentality is threatening a lot of providers. They don't want to share with their colleagues that they may be struggling. And it's because of they have this ickiness, again, whether it's their male or female, whether it's their religion, whether it's their background, what part of the country, what part of the world they came from, culturally, it's just ingrained. And sometimes, and even in dentistry, we are serving patients, so we're not allowed to be profitable. So that's kind of we're not allowed to advertise. The dental board for a long time didn't allow us to advertise because they thought it was going to be more like the, car salesman type of, stereotype. And so there's a lot of that, floating around with dental and medical as well.
Well, I think that I agree with you. I think that a lot of it surprisingly deals with their parents and their parents' money stories and money scripts. Like a lot of these dentists, their parents were in the Depression, or maybe their great grandparents, depending on the age. But somehow this mindset of lack, especially with respect to investing in business, like we gotta adopt this prosperity mindset that we can create and manifest the life and the success of the practice that we want based on doing things, which is hiring people like you and being able to believe that there's a result on the back end and that it's not a waste. Yeah. But they think
it's true.
You know that SNL skit? Really? You've ever seen that?
Yeah. Oh, I love
Yeah.
that. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Really.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
it's just like, you just have to see the forest through the trees. It's totally hokey, but it's the truth, is that what got
Yeah.
you here won't get you there. And in order to get
Right.
to that next level, you got to think differently about what could happen, especially
Yep.
around money.
Yep.
You know,
And
I
if
just,
anyone is kind of, and if anyone's hearing this and like kind of shutting down, saying, "Oh, that's just woo woo," or "That's just not," that's just kind of, salesy. They just want us to hire. Kristine just wants to get hired. That's not true at all, because there's so much research that actually supports in the social sciences that we are going to have an affinity to money or not, and it shows up. There was a consultant a few years ago, probably 15 years ago, and he would share that, based on his experience, that a team member would feel comfortable discussing treatment based on how much money they had in their own checking account.
oh my
So
God.
if that team member, and we know a lot of them are hourly, I mean, dental and female, right? So 95% of hygienists and office managers and assistants and the teams are female. So if they average $500 to $1,000 in their checking account, they're great at talking about fillings or x-rays or sealants, because in their mind, they can afford it.
Yeah.
Yet, if it goes above that, they get that whole resistance. They don't want to talk about it, and they avoid it. And it shows up all the time. It shows up in not wanting to make reactivation calls. It shows up in not wanting to talk about case acceptance, or not wanting to talk about numbers, or not, trying to discuss about third-party payments. It shows up so organically that doctors and teams don't even realize. Every day it's like, that's it. That's your money issue showing up right there.
So how far do you go in working with a client to make them better, to have them be more aware, to try to make
Yeah.
progress with them? Like, where do you drop the line and be like, look, this is who they are? Or how far will you go to try to get them to think differently, when really they're the ones that have to make the change, not us?
Exactly. I'll go as far as they want me to go, until they say, "Hey, Kristine, that's a little bit much. I have to process that," or "I don't think I'm going to introduce that to the team."
Yeah.
But because it's based in, the social sciences, I will bring this module to every single client. I said, "Hey, they trust me now. We've got some traction. We've got some success, but you have some holes. And let's just play around." And it's not, a lot of people know about like personality tests, right? Whether it's a DISC assessment or Myers-Briggs. And actually Myers-Briggs comes from Carl Jung, or Carl Jung, depending on how you want to pronounce it. And he deals with all the personalities and the archetypes. So that's how far this stuff goes back, that we just have to do. And it's very easy. There's fun little exercises I do with groups of 5 to 80, when I'm lecturing, or we can drill down a little bit more if I'm doing something in office and it's a little bit more of a private, more of a trusted type of environment. But I'll call it right out. I just did it last week with a group of hygienists, and we just did some money exercises, and it works. They may not think it's working on them now, and it may not, but it takes a while to process, but it'll show up, and they'll start looking at things a little bit differently. That's what we can change,
Doesn't it
which is
feel
neat.
good when you can work with clients and help them make progress? I mean, I know it's so simple,
Yeah.
but it's a great feeling.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It is a great feeling.
So Kristine, metrics and numbers.
Yeah.
Oh, like my heaven, like I'm a kid in a candy store. I actually was in the airport yesterday, and the store was like candy for kids. And I was like, I'm in. I want 4,000 gummy bears, 3,200 Swedish fish, and I'm going to go right into a dentist, and they can do cavities and root canals on me. Perfect. Anyways,
There you go.
bringing in my
Depend
wine
on your
mind
credit
now.
card.
So talk to us about a P&L. Like, that's my baby, right?
Yep.
So what are some of the
Yep.
line items on a P&L that a dentist should have?
Yeah, absolutely. So I love P&Ls as well, because they just tell you so much, especially when you can, peel back and dig down deep. So looking at, let's always start with the top, right? So the doctor's compensation. The doctor's compensation, I like round numbers. So just say $1 million the office is producing. The revenue is $1 million. So we can just go from a doctor compensation. Ideally, and again, East and West Coast is going to be a little bit different. That's going to be a lot higher. And if you're a specialty, it's going to be a lot higher as well. It's going to be probably 3 to 5% higher. So this is just like a general GP type of practice. But on target, doctors' comp should be about 23% of what their revenue is. And you mind if I just kind of like run down real quick what okay.
When you say comp,
so these are again
or salary, the 23%.
I'm sorry.
When you say 23%.
Great question.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm not going to go into the taxes or the tax accountant, so whatever their total comp should be. So it could be their salary, it could be their bonuses, it could be whatever other little mystery things that they add for their compensation. So it just could be what their package is.
Okay.
Insurances, malpractices, those type of things as well. So front office team, around 7% should be of their target for employees, their admin team. Then dental assistant comp is around 7% as well. Hygiene comp, we could probably have a whole another conversation on how to structure your hygiene because they're a second provider in your practice, how to set that comp, which is basically flatline it around 7%. 7%. Then this is kind of going to go
of sales or of total
of your revenue.
Sales. Okay.
Yeah, your revenue.
Okay.
Yeah. Of your revenue. And then again, I'm going to add, so I'm going to kind of make a correction. So doctor's benefits is going to be about 3%, employees benefits about 3%, training and development around 2 or 3% as well. Again, depending on where you're at. So if you're seasoned, if you're just in mid-career, or if you're new, that's going to change because if your team is young, you're probably going to want to uptick that and give them a little bit more training and development to make your life a lot easier later on. Then facilities is about 5%. Again, advertising and marketing, love that topic, but in general, it could be around 3%. If you're heavy growth, it could be as much as 10, right? So every office is different. Dental supplies, again, around the 5%. Lab expenses, around 6%. Then professional fees, lawyers, accountants, things like that, 2 to 3%. Then in general, just a pile of wherever you want to, your tax accountant wants to put that, about another 5%. So then when you're looking at the bottom line, if anyone's keeping track, it's coming out to be like anywhere from 78 to 82, and then the rest should be EBITDA at the end. So that way the owner of the practice is taking that back. And so that's when you said about doctor's comp, it's kind of each practice is different.
I actually was thinking, wow, that's very low. But when you take your EBITDA, which is your earnings, plus the doctor's comp, you're at a 40 margin, which I think is much healthier. Where I feel
exactly
want to be. Yeah, these numbers are great. What about all of these other metrics that like maybe affect sales, like new patients or conversions on patients, or how many cups of coffee you have in one day, like all that stuff?
No, exactly. So I can't say enough that we can measure anything. And ideally, I can geek out. I was just on the phone call with one of my clients, and I said, "Are you tracking this?" And she goes, "No." I'm like, "Well, do you want to?" She's like, "No, not really." I'm like, "Okay, all right, well, next time we'll try it." But it really comes back with what your values and what your goals are. And this is the beginning of the year, so it's great just to kind of look at where we want to be next year, and this is where we can kind of set it up. So from a treatment acceptance, you said like the conversion rate. So yeah, you want to make sure you're tracking treatment acceptance by office if you have more than one location. And I think if you can track it we call them, many practices call them treatment coordinators. So the person who presents the treatment, not diagnosing, but who presents the treatment. And if you really want to get sexy and fun, you can track case acceptance by hygiene. So you can track how much of that type of diagnosis is coming out of the hygiene operatory.
What do you think that should be, hygiene versus clinical?
Well, great. I mean, that's a great question as well. So you see statistics, so you see people writing articles anywhere from 60 to 80% of the doctor's schedule should be coming out of the hygiene chair. So that means that you are doing full comprehensive care. Now, this is where it kind of ties into the conversation about hygiene comp. I have seen some practices have an amazing hygiene compensation program, and these hygienists are pulling in bukus of money, but the doctor's chair is empty and it's collecting dust.
Yeah, well, they're not
because that type of motivated is for the, they're not, well, no, they're doing their part from based on what their structure is. We just have to relook at what their ground. Well, they're not being compensated for that. So the goalposts have to be changed to get to what the doctor or the goals would want to be for that particular practice.
What do you
so
think,
one number, as you know, doesn't mean anything. It's in relation to the other numbers.
Yeah. So what do you think from
a
treatment acceptance, that number should be? What % of treatment acceptance should it be?
Again, in general, and I'm going to break that down to patients of record and new patients.
Yeah.
So, and there's a little bit of juice behind both of those. So theoretically, patients of record, so patients who have been in your practice, patients you know and you built rapport, should have a higher. So that should be anywhere between, again, 85 to 95%.
Okay. So most of
that patients when they,
Yeah.
And then for new patients, it could be any, I mean, like you can target 70 to 85%. And of course, these numbers are arbitrary. They really are. You have to kind of start tracking them. What's year over year? What did you do last year? What did you do this year? If you've never tracked them, well, let's just start and see what we want to do. Some offices will be happy with 50% acceptance rate, and nothing is wrong with that if that's where you want to start. What's fun when you're talking about when you're working with consultants and you're starting a system, right? So, and you're starting a new, use that example again, the new patient system or a new patient process. Mm-hmm. What I find when you start to implement that, actually, the new patient's case acceptance is higher than the patients of record, because you're trying these skills that have worked with patients you don't know, so you're getting your confidence up, but yet you kind of go back to old habits with Joe down the street who you play golf with. And I'm like, just pull a couple of these things to patients of record and then see what happens on that side. So that's kind of an interesting dynamic. And that's why I get fun when I look at the numbers too, and who's doing it. Because you know.
Forever. I love it. Well, you have been such a fun guest to have on and to talk about everything. I mean, we hit it all. And I really think that, people can get a lot out of what we discussed. Where can they go to find out more information about you?
They can go, the easiest thing to go is on my website, which is my name. So it's www.kristineberry.com, which is KRISTINEBERRY.com. And that's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. My email address is the same, Kristine@KristineBerry.com.
Amazing.
So, and if anyone's interested, I mean, I can send them a couple of, best practices as far as what they want to take a look at as far as with their benchmarks, and we can just kind of start a conversation that way.
Awesome.
So awesome. I prepared for it just in case if you wanted to ask me.
About your best practices?
No, about like percentages, like on for monies and for P&Ls and things like that. So.
Okay, so editor, we're gonna have a stop, and then edit and bring this back in. I didn't know that you had that. I mean, I could go down a rabbit hole because I do a ton of that. So we'll edit that part. We'll bring this back in. Well, thank you for giving us these great nuggets, Kristine. Amazing stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
All right, everybody. This is Justin Krane from Money You Got This, wrapping this one up. Do you love dentistry? Do you love numbers? Do you love business and systems? Go back to the show notes. We got it all for you. See ya. Have a question? Want to get in touch with us? Need some help and advice with your finances? Just go to coolmoneyshow.com and reach out to us. That's coolmoneyshow.com.
Krane Financial Solutions is an SEC-registered investment advisor. However, such registration does not imply a certain level of skill or training, and no inference to the contrary should be made. A copy of our current written disclosure statement discussing our advisory services and fees is available upon request. Information contained herein is for informational and illustrative purposes only and general in nature. It should not be considered specific financial planning or investment advice, or a recommendation to buy or sell any type of securities or other investment products. No investment decision should be made based solely on any information provided herein. We do not provide legal, accounting, or tax services. We recommend that all investors seek out the services of competent professionals in any of the aforementioned areas. Certain information provided has been obtained from third-party sources that we believe reliable. However, it's not been independently verified and is not guaranteed.